Hi there. Welcome to my webinar called The Power That the WordPress Block Editor and Site Editor Give You. I'm going to take you on a journey because, like I've been bragging on social media everywhere, it's possible to build anything with the site editor and the block editor, but the sounds you hear from other sites is that it is clunky. I'm somewhere in the middle. Some things really are clunky and feel clunky, but on the other hand, it is so worth it to build everything with the block editor and full site editing for several reasons. Okay, so what's happening today is that we're going from this through to this, where you see how I built this, which is including a WooCommerce installation. I'm going to show you some responsive stuff. How I set up and use a style guide. And then we're going to end up with an amazing web page built by Thomas Koschwitz from Grade, where he's going to come and show himself how he did that, what he did, and what crazy things he did with dynamic data, query loops, conditional content, and all of that. And all of that without installing a gazillion third-party plugins. Because yeah, it's true. If you want certain things from the block editor or the site editor for that matter, you need additional plugins. And then you're going to run into the same issue that most page builders have, commercial page builders have as well. You're going to end up in a jungle of different plugins, and if you're not careful, you're going to end up in the plugin update blues, and you're going to get in trouble. And getting in trouble costs time, and that costs money. But I'm going to show you another way with that. But first, I'm going to give you context. Now, for those who were there last week, in the live webinar, they noticed this is another time of day. This is me in another background. Yeah, the original recording got lost. But honestly, folks, I'm not that sad because some things definitely went haywire last week. And I'm happy I get a do-over here. All right. So for this webinar, I have built a companion website that you will get in the email with a link. You can always go back and see what I talk about because, like I said, what I'm going to give you is context. How does WordPress work? How is it structured? Because up until now, with classic themes and with those big page builders, we are not taken deeply into the WordPress structure in itself, which is okay. But this is why most people have trouble understanding the block editor at first sight. So I'm going to explain how full site editing differs from commercial page builders. I'm going to get into terminology. What is the difference between a theme and a template? And what's a pattern? And what is a synced pattern, for example? We're even going to go into dynamic templates at some point. Then what the difference is between editing a site and a page. Because that too has led to some confusion. So let's clear that up. Um, and I'm also going to talk about global styles, about how you create patterns, static and dynamic. And then in the end, Thomas is going to come around and show us some very funky stuff where it comes to animations, displaying dynamic data, and all of that. All right, so here we go. The block editor seems to be what you see is what you get, and it's getting better all the time, but there are still some issues. And here's why you shouldn't be so upset about that. Because you give some, you take some. If you're building web pages with a very visual commercial page builder And these pages are complex, they're big, they have a lot of content. Maybe they have some iframes hanging in there. They get slow, so slow. It's like a snail trying to cross the glue, right? That is your time going down the drain. And believe it or not, I know it's sarcastic. 5 times 12 minutes, or I should have said 12 times 5 minutes, is an hour. Now imagine how many times in a week you lose 5 minutes over a slow interface. I prefer a clunky interface over a slow one if it is really, really fast. Okay? So, like I'm saying here on the page in the companion site, unless blocks are added that require a lot of memory to render in the backend, and those are usually third-party blocks, not core blocks. Core is lean and mean. Um, you don't usually need to get a memory upgrade on your hosting server. And again, it's this slick, what you see is what you get experiences that is slowing things down, okay? And then what I like about it is that the editor structure is the same. It is one experience. The layout is on the left, the structure is on the left, and on the right are the details of every block. Okay, and what is different about the classic situation that we had with WordPress? You actually have access to the templates and the template parts, and you get to create them. Now, for the developers watching this, go get a coffee for the next few minutes because I'm going to explain something about how a page is built up to the people who are less knowledgeable about that, but who really need to know this to make their life easier. So if we take a look at this companion website, for example, in the top there is the navigation, then there is what's in the middle, and then there's a footer. Now, if I look at a basic vanilla WordPress installation, and vanilla means it is just WordPress with nothing else, same thing, the header, the content, and the footer. Now, what happens here actually is, oh, under the hood, there is a header template, there is a footer template, and whatever is in the middle, in the main, is the content. And you have to remember the following. If you want to build templates, if you would like, for example, to have several layouts for pages that you can assign based on the weather, I don't know, or the season, you can do that. And when you build a template, then you have to ask yourself, with the elements that you put on it, should it show on every page? Then it should be in the template. Should it not show on every page? Then it is something that goes into the content. Now, I know this may not make a lot of sense yet, but keep this in mind. Okay, we're going back here. Now, the difference between templates, template parts, and all of those things here in a block theme, you can think of that with an analogy, okay? Your block theme is like a house, and the theme decides the overall architectural style of it. And I know that's confusing because we're always talking about themes and templates when we were in Envato, buying our stuff or getting, downloading complete site designs from people offering that. And so the terms theme, template got all mixed up. But remember, the theme is the thing that decides the overall architectural style of the house. And it doesn't matter whether that house is modern, traditional, or whatever. That is decided in the theme. The theme has when it comes to block themes. It has the colors, it has the typography, it has, depending on what you're using for a theme, it has settings for spacing. You can tell whether the content in the middle has to be slim or broad. Like here, they said the content has to be very slim and the wide width is broader. We'll get to that too in a minute. That's all decided in the theme. It is the general overall look and feel of colors, fonts, and spacings. All right, then here I have written that down for you. Now, templates is something else. Templates are made up of blocks, okay? And this is where I described that. A template, on the other hand, is like the floor plan of a specific room. It's like the kitchen or the living room, and it defines the layout of that room. So if you have 5 pages, you have 5 rooms, and you want them to look differently. And they have different furniture. And this furniture, this is the content. So I hope this analogy helps you. And sometimes you want to be done quickly with building up the furniture in your rooms, and then you can group it into patterns. And patterns are like predefined layout parts. I had to get used to the word pattern. I still do, because to me, a pattern is something for sewing that shows you how to sew a blouse or something. But this is what they chose to use, okay? Now, patterns are an amazing thing because you can save a ton of time using them. And you can choose to have a pattern that is just as it is. You paste it in and then you can edit it. Nothing else happens in other places. It just stays on the page. And then there are the so-called synced patterns. And those are patterns where if you change it in one place, it's going to be visual everywhere where you have put this pattern on the page. All right, and then we are talking about template parts. And now template part is an essential part of the WordPress structure. Header and footer are template parts. And also what's important to know is if you want to have a nice life translating your website in multiple languages, and you use a tool like Polylang, regular templates, if I remember correctly, do not let themselves automatically be translated by Polylang, but template parts, they do. Okay. And then there's something called dynamic templates. This is a feature from Grade, and probably Thomas is going to talk about that later. All right. So far for the terminology. Now, the third thing is it a site editor or is it a page editor? Well, I get that this is confusing. It says here edit site and edit page. Always remember, editing the site touches those all over things, the walls of the house, right? And editing the page means you would be editing what is here in the middle. And I can show that based on my companion website here. So I'm going to choose to edit the page. And as you can see, I still see the header and the footer. If you don't see that, it's a setting here on the right, and then it says template, pages, show template. Make sure that this is ticked, and then you will get the closest to a WYSIWYG experience that you can hope for. If I open up the outline or the list view, you will see I have a header, which is a different color. It is in purple, and the footer. It means they are synced elements. And here you see content. Now this is an essential block. This is an essential thing to know when you create a template, that this is where the content goes in that someone writes on the page. So if you have editors or others working on the website or customers, you don't want to let your customers touch the templates, right? Um, they're just going to be editing the content. That's what's in the middle. Okay. Now, what I could do in theory is put in another template on this page. And it's also essential to know on the right, there's always a tab for the page or the post or the custom post type. And there are spaces for the blocks. So if I take this heading, for example, I can still go to the page settings, but it will focus on the block. And then I can change things about that. Now you will see that in my installation here, you see things like animation and attributes and stuff. That's because I use Great Suite. Okay, now let's go to the vanilla installation. Right, let's see if I missed anything. I'm not sure. Let's go check. Site or page. Yeah, that's where we were at. Okay. So we're in this vanilla installation. It doesn't have all the funky great stuff that I have. And now I don't see edit page. Now that is pretty confusing, isn't it? It was to me in the beginning for block themes. The thing is, actually nothing changed compared to the past. It's just visually what happens here. But if I am here in my demo installation and I go to the themes directory and I see this nice theme about welcome to delicious pizza. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to install that. And then my website is going to look like this. Well, let's preview that first. What? Right? You see it? This doesn't look anything like what I saw in the picture. And if I click the other pages, I get some standard text. I don't see anything of the promised layout. So it's not like it was better with classic themes in the past. Okay. Um, Here, all the content that I currently have is one blog post and a sample page. The reason why you see this happening here is that the primary page that WordPress shows you after an installation is the blog post archive. This has just always been like this, and I'm not sure if it's ever going to change, but if you want this to display something else, you will have to tell the installation under settings that the homepage should be another one under reading, and then you tell it to be a static page. If you don't do it, it will always show your latest posts. And the problem with that is when you only see edit site, you should be alerted that you are actually going to enter editing a template. If you weren't, it would also give you edit page. I'll show you what I mean by that. If I now click this blog post, I'm in a regular blog post page. I'm away from the home page, and suddenly it says, hey, you want to edit post or do you want to edit the site? And if you are the admin, you will see edit site. If you have a lower clearance in the website, if you have another user role, you don't. It's the admin that sees this. All right. If I click on the sample page, same thing. So keep in mind, edit page is what is happening here in the middle. Is it elements that should show on every page? No, put it in the content of the page itself. Okay. Now, here I'm going to start showing you the power that you have when you use the block editor. Let's go into the regular dashboard, into the pages. I prepared a couple. All right, that one. Edit. Okay, I'm going to set them to published. Now, the menu, the navigation in top automatically updated itself. Navigation is the bane of many people's existence where it comes to the block editor. At least that's what I heard and read through the grapevine. That too has a wonderful logic behind it, which I will show you. All right, now let's say this is a website that is about activities in summer and in winter. Now, the content would probably be the same with a gallery of photos and some text and something like that, right? I could do that. I could go to the page in the front end and then I'd say edit the page. And what happens is you immediately get the starter patterns that come with this theme. And this is something you need to understand. Nothing is like the old ways with where you would buy a theme and everything would have been set for you. This is like building with Lego. This is why it looks like you get a completely empty site. Although again, this too doesn't look much like a filled site, does it? And this was the old situation with classic themes, right? So, all right, let's make things easy. We're going to use these patterns. And the great thing about patterns is that you can create them yourself. But let's get this one. All right. There's something in this page that is really disturbing. At least it is to me. There's this great thing here. I'm like, what is that? When you open up the list view, you can actually click the element and see what it is. And in the template of this page, it shows a featured image. If I create a new page, again, this thing is showing up. And yes, I can remove it. Or can I? No, I can't, because I would have to remove this from the template. So the people who designed the 2025 theme decided for us that if there is a featured image present in a page, then it should be displayed on the page. Now, I don't know how you do it, but you set featured image here. Let's do that. All right. Hey, normally you add alt text, okay? And now it has this featured image, okay? But it doesn't tell me that I can publish. That's frustrating, right? Why can't I publish? I did change the content, didn't I? No, I didn't. And this is one of those tricky things with the site editor and the block editor and the new way of working with block themes. Because what actually happened here is that this is a dynamic element. And I am able to choose the featured image, but I didn't change the content. All I did was tell the website, okay, on this page, display the featured image that I chose for this page. But if you look on the left, you see again that here is this content block. Let's give this a title. Okay, just do it like that. Now it will allow me to publish because now it says, oh, I have content. All right, what does this page look like? It has that featured image. But what if you don't really like the layout of this? What if you don't like that whoever created the theme you're working with decided that the thing in the middle should be that slim? Okay, in a classic theme, you would never have been able to change that. But here you can. You go to Edit Site, and then you come into the template in a regular way. You come into the Pages template, and it warns you here. It says this is the content block. And this will display all the blocks in a single post or page. So don't throw that away, okay? But if we want to remove this from all the pages, here we can. This is dynamically displaying the title of the page that you gave it. And again, here's the content. So I want to save it. And now that picture is gone. But as you can see, I wrecked something else because it doesn't not only not have that top picture anymore, it also doesn't have the menu, the navigation, it's gone. I, for some reason, managed to remove the entire header. So let's put that back in. This is the beauty of the block editor. I can just put back in the header to the template. So I'm going to say add before, click on the plus, and I'm going to say I want the headers. So in the patterns, I go to the headers, and I think I'll choose one that I like better than the other one. Yeah, let's do this one. And now we walk into a bit of a bug because I had asked it to add it in before, and it's adding it in another place, but you know, they'll probably solve that in the next version. Let's close all this because nothing bad happened actually here when I click this. It says full width header with a hero image, but it's not really a header. I'm just gonna type /header, and then it puts in the original header here. And I can take out this group if I want. About groups and roles, you can learn on Make WordPress. The website from Grade also actually has a great tutorial about this as a video tutorial. So let's replace this header here. Just throw it up there. Save. All right. And there it is. And it's there in every page. And here's where your power comes in, because maybe that's not what you wanted. Maybe you want the summer page and the winter page to have a different template because maybe you want to add spring or autumn or whatever, and you don't want to reinvent the wheel because reinventing the wheel takes time. Okay, so let's create another template. All right. Now, if you want only certain pages to have a completely different header and not all pages have that same header. Then before you start building that new page template, you actually need to build a new header, an additional one. So you go to Appearance, Editor, and then because a header and a footer are template parts, like I showed you in the XD file here, you have to go to Patterns. And yes, folks, I agree, that is clunky, and maybe we'll find a solution for that. But again, I don't mind the clunkiness because these sites are super fast and very flexible. So yeah, I'll live with it. Okay, so to add another header, I'm going to add a pattern, and then I'm going to choose Add Template Part and choose Header. Aha, okay, then it wants a name. I always forget that. All right. And yes, is this a clunky experience? Sure is, because it's clunky. It's not WYSIWYG, right? So that's okay. I will just use one of the header patterns. I could build one for myself, but that's a whole different webinar. So let's go into headers, and then let's choose that one in the middle. All right, and let's see how that is constructed. I can see that in the list view. Okay, it has the site title, and then it has the group that has the navigation. All right, by the way, navigation is also in that sidebar in the site editor. You can create different navigations for different purposes. So I'm just going to leave that for now here in the page list. But you could do that. You could actually take out pages, add pages, maybe add an external page. But we're leaving it like this. And I'm going to make the entire header have another background color. So I'm going to go here and make that yellow. Okay, now we have a template part, a header called Season 2. Let's go back. And now we go to Templates, add a template, and then Custom Template. If you click Pages, you're going to change the template for all the pages because everything you see here are overall templates. So you get a custom template, seasonal page. All right. I'm going to create that. And it gives us the choice to choose this pattern. We can do that. But actually, I want another header. So I'm going in here. No, I don't need to do that. I need to open up the list view. I'm going to say add before. And then with the forward slash, I'm going to call the headers here. And now you see when I type head that I can actually get the season header. And I can remove this one. You have to do that, folks. You cannot have two headers in a website. It's very bad for accessibility. So, and this is great. I cannot put a picture in there. And why not? Because I chose that to be the featured image of the page. So let's quickly go to the page that is going to use this. And let's say we're going to have Summer use that. Okay. We're going to set a featured image to that for the summer. Probably didn't save that. This is the all archives template. That's not where I want to be. All right, this is the seasonal template. Save. Okay. I have to tell that page that it's supposed to have the seasonal template. So I'm going to edit this page. And here on the right, I can choose templates. So I'm going to get change template and choose that one. And now it has the featured image and a different header. Now you see how much power you have. I mean, this is absolutely insane. You are playing on the same grounds as where you would normally need a developer doing this all for you. And I don't believe this is a threat to developers. I believe that this means that web developers who create custom websites now have a chance to move on to more complex stuff. I think it's an opportunity. So this is where we were in our core installation with 2025 theme. And here we still have this thing where the content is very slim. This is something that the author of the theme set. And so where you change that, well, if you paid attention, you're going to know that this has to be changed in the global settings. And here comes my pretty drawing again. um, if you look at a site, at a WordPress site, you have full width, you have wide width, and you have the width of the content. So this is clearly the content width, and the content width has been set to something very, very slim. Okay. So we can go in there by edit site, but then we don't get this WYSIWYG kind of view. See, if I do that straight from the page from the front end, all I get that is this is the content block. Now, I don't mind getting that. I can use my imagination to remember what was there because this will affect everything inside that block. So it doesn't matter if I see this or something else. But for those people who really are sensitive to getting this visual experience, it's a good thing to go in here through the editor and then to pages. And then the page that we're going to change is the sample page. Was that? All right. So I'm going to click that. And then I'm going to click inside here. Now I have a more or less WYSIWYG experience because I see that content, I see the footer, I see the header. And now I can go into styles. And if you paid attention before, you've seen that you can enter styles in different ways. You can also enter styles here. And don't be upset, I implore you, because this is really a transitional phase where the design team and the development team of Core WordPress are moving things around so they can finally create this unified experience. And what you're seeing here is part of what's supposed to be that unified experience. So let's take this one. It's the same. Oh, let me close that. That is just disturbing. All right. Go to layout, and now you'll see that the content width is actually only 645. So let's make that bigger. And the wide width, again, this is the wide width, this is the content width. Make that 1600. I like that. And then click review one change, save that. And now when we look at the site, this is all wide. And it's in the content width. If I want this to be in another width, I have to do other settings, but that's for another webinar. This is just to show you off how much power you already have when you can get into the templates and into the um, page templates and the headings and the footers. All right. Now, let's go from here. So what you have here is one of my showrooms. It's one of my demo sites, and it actually lives inside of the Grade Hub. I have a ton of those websites. I like to play around. I like to mess. I like to show people stuff. So if you ever want a demo of how this works, ping me. I'm always in for a digital coffee. Anyway, so now we're here, and now we're going to get serious because I really like to show you some really concrete stuff here that you have so much influence on, you wouldn't believe it. Like the color settings here, for example. I always go through the dashboard. I'm sure there are faster ways, by example, using Command UI or maybe the shortcuts that they have, but I will just go here. And again, I do this because I like to see things from my pages in a WYSIWYG way. So I just click it like this, and I know that I have it now because over here on the top, I can see the WordPress styles and the additional grade styles. Now, if I go into styles, I could browse the styles that have been pre-made by the people who created the grade theme with these color schemes, but I didn't want that. I wanted my own. So I can edit the palette here. Here are the theme colors. And if I hover them, you can see that it says primary, secondary, tertiary. Those people are variables. If you are a bit into coding, you would see under the hood in the code that these are CSS variables. And I know there are a lot of hardcore developers out there who are like totally crazy about products like Bricks or Currently Edge, that another beautiful product, developer focused, who love their variables and want to make them for everything. But I like to keep things simple because if you're building a website and you have to deliver it to your customer, everything needs to be simple. Otherwise, they'll be hanging on your support line every day. So what you set here is the global colors that you use in your site, your branding colors, for example. And what is important to understand is this affects, again, everything. We are in the site editor. So if you change the tertiary color somewhere to something else, let's see, I have this tertiary color here, right? And I'm just going to remember the number like this. Now I'm going to change it. I have that color in other places, not on this page. Okay, probably in the style guide, but I'll change it here. As you can see, the effect is immediately visible. And this will happen throughout your entire site. That's a good thing, but you have to understand how it works. And that way you can start moving bigger parts, okay? Also, I can set the color for text, background, links, everything. Then typography. I can install my own fonts. This is amazing because you can actually install a font and say, okay, connect me to Google Font to choose a font. As soon as you install them, Google is cut off. This is very much wished for in the EU. This is great. Okay, so you can choose your fonts. All right. You can set the background color or a background image. I don't know who would want to set a background image for a website. I mean, that's like so 1998, but all right, you can set shadows to elements. And again, here we are back in the layout. Oh yeah, very important. You can set padding and block spacing. And block spacing is literally the space between the blocks. Now, this has to do with intrinsic web design, right? Here are some values: large, small, medium, none. Pretty cool. But what are these values for real? Who set those? Well, the person who created your theme. That is set in the theme settings in the JSON. So it doesn't mean that we could never do this for ourselves. I mean, yeah, if we know how to handle JSON, we could. Or if you use a theme that actually exposes these values in the interface, then you can set them too. And this is one of the reasons why I am so fond of using Great Suite, because this is what Great Suite actually did. If you're running their theme, you will get spacing, and you can set those with in a static way, in min-max, or with clamp. All right. If I take it to the style guide, for example, you could immediately see these effects, right? Yep, I did it. I ran into edit sites and I want to go into that page itself. So I'll go to pages. Well, come on. Okay, this is based on author and status. I thought it was going to show you a shortcut, but that's not it. All right, let's go to the style guide. What you see here is interesting too, by the way, because this is an empty value. There is nothing there. And in the front end, you won't see it either. It's not there. And I'll tell you, it's not there under the hood either, which is good, because even though you and I cannot see it, if that code was still there under the hood, the assistive technology sees it. Imagine you have to listen to a screen reader that is yelling at you and saying all kinds of stuff that other people don't even see because it's not supposed to be there. All right. So now we are here in the style guide. I have this as a pattern. And when you install Great Suite, the style guide comes with that. So you can immediately start setting up all these wonderful colors and spacings and settings. All right. And then I go here to the Great Styles and I want to test the spacing. And this is fantastic because it is visual. So let's take the medium spacing here. We are here in medium, and it says the minimum spacing at the smallest screen should be 1.5, and at a maximum it should be 2 rems. All right, let's change that rem value. As you can see now here, this is changing. You see it live. And for a visually oriented person like me, that is absolutely wonderful. I hope it is for you as well. Now, for people new to the concept of intrinsic web design and working with variables, yes, they still are variables. I know people are going to battle me about this on social media, but these are global variable settings that you're putting here, okay? So you have your spacing, and then, for example, you would want um, your breakpoints. Breakpoints, people. Everybody's complaining about WordPress full site editing and the block editor that there is only one breakpoint. It's somewhere around 600. Ah, designers don't like that. I don't like that. Um, because it gives me a sense of no control. And when you're using the Great theme, you can actually have these breakpoints. And I'm talking about the theme that comes with the free version of Great Suite. It's a very extensive trial version. You can try it for as long as you like. There's no limit. It'll just give you a yellow balloon when you're using it. But all right, I am digressing. And I already showed you what happens when you start changing global colors. So you see now how much you can influence. And if you have all these things set correctly and you have all your spacings and everything, you can start whopping in your sections, your elements just like that, because you don't have to worry about the settings anymore, as they are not on a block level but on a global level. And it's the same with, like, when you try to format a Word document or a Google Doc, where you decide what headers look like or headings should look like, what paragraphs look like, how much spacing there is between them and between the lines. It's no different with this. And this makes it very easy to design a website in an intrinsic way, because this is 101. All right, where were we? I was in the styles. Now let's move on to the patterns. Now, what is a pattern? It's a collection of elements, blocks, whatever you put together and you want to save. I'm going to show you how patterns work based on my demo website here on this companion website. I'm going to go edit the page. Now, I can drop a pattern here that I choose. I can choose one from Greg, for example. All right, let's choose this one. And this, as you see, is a whole group of elements. There's these buttons, there is these columns. The thing is, the way this has been done means someone can actually change this and break this. All right. And there is a way to prevent that. So in WordPress core, in vanilla core, you cannot easily prevent that. They are doing something called block bindings. So there is some dynamic content. Sorry. And but in Great Suite, you can actually lock down entire patterns, which is great for your customers, because it's not always that the customer wants to be able to do everything. The customer also wants to be protected from breaking stuff. Now, let's say your customer creates marketing pages, landing pages, and they always have the same kind of hero elements that they want and the same kinds of blocks. And let's say here they want to have buttons. All right, let's add those. We can choose the buttons from the core blocks. I'm choosing the buttons from the theme. All right. Haven't set an action to that yet. And now let's quickly triplicate these with Command-Shift-D on the Mac. I'm sure there's a shortcut for Windows as well. And let's leave this one empty. Now imagine I want to save all this as a pattern. Where are we? I have to click this. Okay. Here it is. Okay. With the Shift tab, I can actually select multiple items. And now I'm going to save this as the pattern. And let's say we create this as a, what we call it, marketing summer. And call the category marketing. I mean, there's more happening on the site than just marketing. And here it automatically says synced. Be careful, because if you don't remember to put that off, this is going to be one of those patterns that when you change it here, it's going to change everywhere. And then your site is going to be like whack-a-mole. Okay, so I'm going to turn off synced. And now it says unsynced pattern created. Okay. To see it, we would have to save and reload the page. And now we're just going to pretend that this is a whole new page, and we're going to add in that pattern. If you can remember what you called it, you just do / and type part of the name, you'll get it. If you can't remember that, you click the plus sign, you go to patterns, and then you go to the category that you created. So I created a category called marketing, and here I have this pattern. So I should now see in the website this twice. These are just loose, and these are part of that pattern. And as you can see now, the fourth button is not visible. I tell you, it's not visible in the code as well. Very good for accessibility. And this is because this pattern had a button in it that had no content, no text. And if you want to offer patterns to your users, it's good to make sure that they do not have to go find out how they can add an extra button. So you leave this in, but you have to remember this is specifically something that Great Suite does. This is not WordPress core. Now, if I want to protect my customers from themselves, I'm going to create a dynamic template. Call it Marketing 101. It's going into marketing. And I'm going to enable the content overrides. What this means is that things inside of this, the content can be overridden, but no one can add another button. So no one can say add after and then do something, because it's just not going to work. This whole thing has been locked down, except for the text here. And that way you can lock down complete patterns, complete pages. And this is something that you want to do when you work for a larger company, for example, where several departments have to edit and create content and you give them their own set of patterns that they can use. All right, so here's one last thing I promised to show you. On my demo site, it still says new spacing controls, but they've been there for a while. Um, so Grade, the company behind Grade Suite, used to be a web agency. They used to work with page builders themselves, and they developed Grade Suite. And when they decided to go block-based completely. Now, as we all know, we still don't have responsive controls in WordPress core. Now, that's a problem for a lot of us. And so Greg decided to create spacing controls. And what you see here is something that when you download the free version of Great Suite to try for yourself, I mean, you can play around with that as long as you like. You can build a gazillion sites with it. The only thing that you will have to live with is the yellow balloon or banner at the bottom right. But you can try everything. Um, and the new spacing controls, or the not so new spacing controls, are a pattern that I have here that I'm more than willing to share with you, because in the current version of Great Suite and the theme that comes with it, the block theme, these patterns are all already incorporated, so you can use those as much as you like. But I love to share this one because it actually shows how it works and how calc is used and how flexbox is used. And this is the pattern that I promised to share with you in the email. So you're going to get the global styles, and you're going to get this pattern. Now, if I go and inspect and set this to mobile view, you will see what happens. Oh, it's selected here. All right. And this is something that Core doesn't do out of the box. This is because it was set that way. Over here, I have 3 in a row and a broad one in the bottom. And here it nicely goes to be all blocks. Then this and the responsive columns as well. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can actually do. If we check out the responsive columns here, let's go down and click them. Then we get there fastest. All right. You will see on the right that you can set all these per breakpoint. And we've been enjoying this functionality for a while now. Okay, so this is the pattern I'm going to share with you. And then one last thing, why am I sharing the global styles with you? Well, it's very simple. I have shown you the hub. If you install Great Suite in a multi-site or not, I mean, you could install it in a single site as well. And you would like to see what it's like to quickly take global styles from one site over to another, this is a great way to do it. So from the showroom website, I have downloaded the active design. Those are the global styles. And if I create a new website, I call them global styles. All right, what's wrong here? Oh, I have a space? No. All right, title. I go to the dashboard. I run the installer. Just the theme, don't need the forms plugin right now. But I tell you, go try that forms plugin. It is integrated because it can keep up with forms like WS Forms, Gravity Forms, where functionality is concerned. It has conditional fields, the whole shebang. It's absolutely fabulous. So I'm activating it here. I'm leaving. All right. So in this website, now I have these colors and these styles, right? I'll just show the entire process. So I'll download the active design of my showroom site. Call it example globals. All right, I've got it there. And now I go to this website. Remember, it looks like this. And I'm importing this active design. And that means colors, spacings, breakpoints, the whole shebang, right? It means you get to work a lot faster. One last thing that is absolutely fabulous about using the block editor and full site editing is that actually when you copy blocks and sections from one site in a certain style, they will inherit the style of the other site if you set this on a global level. Of course, if you started spinning wheels on a block level, that's a different story. But just to give you an example, let me find this one. Well, we can actually try that with this one here. This is my breakpoints example website. All right, I have this sample page here, and I'm just going to whack in a pattern. Let's say I'll do an entire page. This one, for example. Okay. And then I'm going to take the other stuff out. This goes down all the way down to here, right? Yeah. So with Shift, I can select them all. Oh, it didn't want to. All right, here we go. Just so you know, now this page looks like this, right? Okay. I'm going to take all of this. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to take that to the new website, to the sample page here, which I'm going to edit. And then let me take this out. And then I'm going to paste that. And you see immediately all of this inherited my styles. And it doesn't look very good, obviously, because my textiles are too dark for this. But here we are. It's been inherited. Now, if you know how to leverage that, you can actually start building up sites like crazy. You can create your own pattern library. This is something you can do in core. You can copy from a core theme into the pages of another site created with WordPress core. Um, and I'm sure you'll have a blast. So now it's time for Thomas to start showing you this insane dynamic stuff that he did with animations, with query loops, with nested query loops, and all of that. Have a look. this part is particularly interesting for agencies who have developers sitting around who really want to know more about this, because as a developer, you can now focus on the really complex stuff, because the things that Thomas is going to show you that would normally require custom development can now be done in the block editor using GradeSuite. All right. Now we have Thomas from GradeSuite, who is going to show you how he takes the free version of Ollie theme on steroids with GradeSuite. And by the way, everything he's showing here is all possible in the free version of GradeSuite. So you can download it and try all of this for yourself. And at any time, if you feel you're stuck or you want to know more, or you're like, oh, I want to use this for my business, get in touch with Thomas. I'll share the details with the email that has this recording in it.
All right,
So,
perfect.
Thomas, all right, let's go.
Okay, perfect. I will jump right in since we already saw like the standard version of Ollie in the previous minutes of your presentation. I will share my screen. You just give me a little thumbs up if it's working properly. All right, perfect. So here we are in like the landing page of my Ollie installation. As you see, I just used the standard patterns which are available in the free version of Ollie. We have the split header and used as well. And we have like here the hero section. And the first couple of things you already notice is if I scroll down, now I have a sticky header with navigation animated. So which means the height of the actual header shrinks down as soon as it's sticky. The next section here is the hero section. This will disappear based on the viewport. So you can perfectly refine this. Next section is building up as soon as it hits the viewport center. And so I can scroll down. The next thing here is a team section using the standard patterns of Ollie, and I just implemented a little Ken Burns effect to set a hover style for the images. And this is especially interesting because I used the newly edited grid variation in the block editor. It's just a variation for the group block. And in the same section down below, I have set up another animation. So based on a viewport again, these elements appear and disappear. So, oh, there is my proper scrolling now again. Okay, perfect. So the next section is here, an entire section. We change the background color. We change the entire shape of the image. If we scroll down further, we even change the transparency of the image, and we will let appear another element, which is completely built with blocks. Scrolling down further, next sections here. Then we have testimonials, just using a variation of the group block again. It's the row block. And with our additions for width controls, you can create bento grids with ease. Next section is a logo carousel of some sorts based on your scrolling. Yeah, as soon as you stop scrolling, it stands still, starts scrolling again, and it starts the animation again. Next section down below, we have some pricing here. Pricing tiles, standard patterns from Ollie, animated with us. So we have a hover to emphasize the product. And one interesting thing is, since Ollie is using the standards in WordPress when it comes to full site editing, there is still some elements missing. For example, proper hover styles in buttons. With the addition of grade in an Ollie installation, you can overcome this problem with using animation because you can change the color settings based on a trigger, which could be hover in this case on a button. Scrolling down further, here we have some very special thing. This is a query loop using dynamic data from a post type, which is created through the grade settings for our team members. And this is not custom built. It's a query which takes the data from that post type. But every tile looks different depending on their category. Because Grade has one fantastic block, which is called conditional content, and you can change the entire layout of a block structure based on a condition, which could be, in this case, a taxonomy from a post type, or even a time of day, a UTM parameter, as I mentioned, taxonomy or custom taxonomy, user group, whatever you want. You can build really big automations with that. That's just to get you the idea what's actually possible. Because when I filter this, and again, this is a great feature, just using our search block inside a query, you can filter them. So now we have all the designers, they look like this. We have all the developers looking like that. And the marketing loves a bit of color, is pink. So scrolling down to the next section, here a query loop with live filtering in a more common way. We're just displaying blog posts. And down below, we have one of our other features inside of Grade Suite, perfectly suitable for Ollie, for example. If you want to build out of the box forms with a block editor, you can do that because we developed great forms. So you have the same interface whether you're creating a form or building a page. Okay, so enough from the front end. Let's jump right into the back end and see what's done here. Okay, scrolling up above you.
Can I make one remark while you are going to the back end?
Sure.
Um, of course, many of you know me as an accessibility specialist and mentor, and I had the honor to help Great Suite, and I'm still working with them to make the Great Suite accessibility ready and to keep it that way. Because, of course, every new feature brings in possible accessibility issues to the front end. So we work together closely. And the animations that you saw, for example, when someone has the setting to reduce motion, the animations simply stop.
Yeah.
Okay. And the forms are accessibility ready. And this is a fantastic achievement. I applaud Grade for this. And this is one of the other reasons why I'm so thankful that Thomas is here with us today, because this is also something of my personal pride that I love to tell you about.
Yeah, we have to thank you as well because without you, this wouldn't be possible at all. So kudos for that, helping us to yeah create actually a product who is accessible already. And yeah, we will have some new arrows in what's this, a quiver or what is it called? I don't know. Let's skip that. No problem, because yeah, Anne and us were working closely together to give you the best experience when it comes to block editor, site editor, accessibility, and everything else, because we want to emphasize you, or we want to emphasize to use actually the block editor and the site editor, because for the first time ever in WordPress, this can be a global standard for all software providers in the WordPress ecosystem. And we should embrace that because
That's big.
yeah, that's one of a kind, and that's the first time ever this is possible. So, but enough of the chit chat. Let's look into the interface. So, first of all, I want to really quick show you how this header is built. So in here, we have our header section, and up above we have like the meta navigation, the split header. And this is nested actually in the pages template. By the way, I don't know if it's in the recording already. Some of you might miss the header and footer currently with 6.8 in the site editor, or suddenly have header and footer in the pages section. It's coming because of a newly additioned or newly added change in the template structure here. You have the option to show a template. If you disable that, it looks like the old way in the pages editor. You see your page type. If you're missing your header, just go on template, click on show template, wait a couple of seconds, and it's loaded. So jumping actually inside the template, because there is the nesting for that split header. So in here, you see, okay, I have like my group. Normally, I would create a template part with that. So next block is sticky box, which is our content box, just with a variation and it's proper CSS sticky. But you have more options. You can absolute position the header maybe on the top, on the right, on the left of the browser. You can absolute position it in place. You're completely flexible. Let's switch back to sticky. So inside we have the header, which is sticky then. And here we have nested an animation. Let's go on edit. Let's have a look into the stack, which is the outer element of the header. And there is our animation placed. Click on that. We click on custom. And here I created a custom animation because Grade does not only have presets for everything, you can create your own animations as well. And as you see, this is basic CSS. You don't have to mess around with selectors. Just pop in your initial state, your final state, and you could put in any CSS definition which is working. And then you set a trigger, whether it's on hover, on click, on scroll, parent hover, parent click, while scrolling, which means parallax, or on page load. In our case, we use onScroll, and instead of a viewport base, we use an absolute scroll point of about 50 pixels. And we do this in both directions, which means activate an animation and deactivate an animation. All right, heading back to the pages template. Since the animation is already stored in here in the header template, I have it available everywhere. So jumping back to the page itself. So the next section down below here, just clicking in, it's a standard cover block, enhanced with the features you get from the theme.json from Ollie, which means you have a blurred image more, rounded default state. But again, injected, we have our animation setting here, and it's basically a preset height, fade out up. Here you have a visual preset of that. On scroll, absolute scroll point, it starts of about 420 pixels. And we change the duration and we set an ease. Going down to the next section in here. This is just using the standard columns block. And in here, each and every element is animated again because these animations you'll find in every parent and every child block. And the interesting part is, since I guess we had the discussion, third-party extenders, one of the people in the audience mentioned Cadence. GradeSuite is compatible with basically every other system in the market, especially when we're talking about block extenders. There is even more because a couple of our additions, like animations or breakpoint dependent height settings, um, we made available in each and every custom block as well of a third-party block extender. So if you install Grade as a plugin in a Cadence installation, you get these features, as well as in a installation who is using stackable blocks. If it's a GreenShift website, you can use these features everywhere. Grade is some kind of a Swiss Army knife at this layer. So looking at the animation, nothing too fancy. It's just show fading up and with a different duration. And it starts on scroll based on a viewport. And to do the stacking, and just go into the next element, look at the animation, 500 with a delay of 100 milliseconds, so 100 milliseconds later. By the way, this element here is a dynamic template because everything you do when you use Grade and every element you want to use more than one time perfectly makes sense to create a dynamic template because then you can control the structure within the template and change it, but you use it and reuse it in pages with different contents. Heading back. So scrolling down, here we have the grid block. and the grid block. Just here, using the pattern for team member from Ollie. And in here we have an animation as well, but instead of animating the block, we animated the background because blocks who has a capability of having an individual background, you can control both layers individually when it comes to animations, which means I could animate the entire block, which means animate everything in the block as well. But in that case, I just use the background image and I set it to scale. Origin, center, center, you can change that if you want to, and the trigger is hover. And I just used this element multiple times. In here, combined. That's my team member, animation, on scroll, fade and right. On scroll, after the element hits the center of the screen. And so you can build really nice layouts. And this is the grid block, which is capable of working with CSS grid. If you want to build bento grids, really easy. If you want to build masonry, you can do that because every block you put into a grid block automatically gets in the styling options, the options column span and row span. So you're completely flexible. The only issue you might run into currently in using the grid block is that the setting itself of the parent container is very limited. You can set up a minimum column width, or you can set up a max amount of columns. But sometimes you want to have a max amount of columns and a minimum column width. And therefore, I created myself a little helper class. And I just popped that in. And if you're interested in these helper classes, feel free to reach out. I will share them. No problem at all. Okay, next thing here. Cover block. This is the image. Animation. Here we did go crazy. We have a block animation and a background animation. And in here, we, for example, change the border radius and we change the background color at a certain point. The element down below is used using our content box again as floating box with a percentage-based top margin and a percentage-based left margin. So it's properly sized regardless what screen size you have. And the animation itself, it's just again simple fade in up. At a certain point, it will be displayed. Okay, I think I skipped the rest and we're looking into the fancy details of the query loop. Because more and more people tend to like using dynamic data. Because when you set up your website, your project, you always have to have like the content creator or the client later on in mind. And you want to make sure that you create an as easy as possible user experience. For example, in complex sections with using data from different elements in the backend, it makes sense to automate everything. And you can lock this down as a template so he has no access to that. In our case, I let it open because we want to actually look into the specific details here. So this is a standard query loop inside of WordPress. We enhance it in a way that you can, for example, you obviously can change the post type, can use your own created post types. You have advanced filters to filter elements by taxonomy, meta field information, authors, date, individual post, and sort results. And in this case, sort them random. Every time I visit the website, the layout is different. So no one of the team members can say, okay, why I'm not at the first place? Because then you can say, just reload the page and maybe you're lucky. So, and this, again, it's a matrix. You can go crazy with the filtering here. But the magic is in the actual post slider as well, because here you can set up your columns. You have proper breakpoint control, elements per page, number of columns, gap, initial breakpoint if you don't want to reload the query all the time. You can, by the way, change the HTML structure as well. Especially handy when you want to overcome the problems of the standard navigation block, if you want to use a query loop to create your navigation, you can do that. And again, accessible ready. All right, let's look into the details inside the block. So in here we have the filtering I've showed you. Therefore, I used the great search block. The great search block gives you the possibility to use filters, date picker, search field, drop downs, a search button, a input field, whatever you want. And in that case, I used filter and chips. And I will click on that chart block. There you can filter specific to categories. If you have created custom taxonomies or if you have connected site-wide taxonomies with that specific post type, they will show up here as well. And you can go crazy with that filtering. You have a reset option as well. We have some presets from the design perspective. We have like radial buttons, we have tabs, we have primary button style, we have alternate button style, clear and chips, iOS switches, and so on. And if that is not enough control over layout, scroll down and create your own layout if you want to. And as soon as you pop in the search block into a query loop, it automatically filters the front end. But now let's talk about what this is actually. These are basically patterns from Ollie. And I used here 3 different patterns, as you see in my query loop. And the system decides based on your filter and based on the taxonomy, the information of a post has, whether it should display that layout, or that layout. Just by using the conditional content block and you have just to pop in the pattern from Ollie, for example. You go on conditional content and then you can change this condition. So only show me this layout when the post taxonomy of the post type team and the category in that has the taxonomy marketing. But it's not limited by that. It's again based on a URL parameter, based on a cookie, based on a time, user role, post taxonomy, post meta information, and so on and so on. And again, if or when, and it's a matrix. You can go crazy with that. It's possible to build entire websites with using only automated data from a post type architecture, so no one ever has to log on into a visual interface at all. It's possible. All right. I think that is already maybe a bit too technical. If you're interested, especially in these parts and how to work with dynamic data, with query loops, with conditions, feel free to reach out to us. I'm more than happy to have a one-on-one discussion with you and show you all the details you wanna know. All right. And I think
Wow, Thomas, that was
yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much. This was so great. It also shows that Grade replaces more than 10 premium plugins like custom post types, forms. There are people who are saying, oh, but I need ACF. And I mean, ACF is a fantastic product in itself. We can be absolutely clear about that. But the thing is, what I love about Great Suite is that we actually don't need to install additional plugins. And with that, we avoid plugin blues on updates. And this is the second role that I have to teach agencies how to optimize their processes so they actually get scalable instead of just growing or whatever. I mean, hey, 12 times 5 minutes is an hour, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, thank you so much, Thomas.
Oh,
And thank you, everybody else who has joined us last week. And thank you who are watching the replay right now. Feel free to reach out to Thomas or to me. And all our contact data are in the email that where this replay is included. And yeah, if you have any questions, just approach us, and we're there. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank you so much for having me. And folks, see you soon.